Introduction. Mother Teresa and the Thirst of God. In his thirst, the dying Christ seeks a drink quite different from water or vinegar. Now, on the cross, Jesus thirsts for a new humanity, which would arise from his sacrifice in fulfillment of the Scriptures. The thirst of the cross, on the lips of the dying Christ, is the ultimate expression of the desire of a baptism to be received and of a fire to be kindled on the earth, which had been manifested by him during his life. Now the desire is about to be fulfilled, and with those words Jesus confirms the ardent love with which he desired to receive that supreme baptism, to open to all of us the fountain of water, which really quenches the thirst and saves. Pope St. John Paul II, General Audience, 1988. Jesus is God, therefore his love, his thirst is infinite. The aim of our Missionary of Charity Society is to quench the infinite thirst of a God made man. The first words of our constitutions, the aim, I thirst. Are we too busy to think about that? The words, I thirst, do they echo in our souls? I do not know whose thirst is greater, his or mine for him. Mother Teresa, 1950. Instructions, 1980. Letter, 1980. Everyone associates Mother Teresa with the work among the poorest of the poor, a mission that she inaugurated among many peoples on every continent. But few have any idea of her real message, of the hidden fire that burned within her and urged her on to do all that she did with such compassion and love. The message behind all of Mother Teresa's missionary activity is simple but staggering. In the poverty and cross of Jesus, God has revealed his thirst for us and for our love. Yet, this is more than just a verbal message. It is first of all a reality to be encountered and experienced over and over again, ever more deeply. When Jesus was suffering on the cross, one of the cries that came from his lips was, I thirst. What does this cry of, I thirst, express? First and most importantly, it expresses God's thirst for us. Jesus, speaking in his divine nature, revealed something about God that we would otherwise not have known. That God thirsts for us and for our love. But speaking in his human nature, Jesus also revealed something about us that we may never have known, that man is a living thirst for God. The cry, I thirst, refers to both God and man. Ever since the fall of our first parents, both God's thirst for humanity and humanity's broken thirst for God has gone unquenched. God had intended there to be a continually quenched communion of thirsts between himself and his human children, but instead there was only distance and separation. On the tree of Calvary, for the first time since eating from the fateful tree of Eden, the thirst of God and the thirst of man were brought together in complete harmony in the person of Jesus. The divine cry, "I thirst," echoes throughout the whole of salvation history. The Old Testament is a careful and magnificent preparation for the full revelation of the Lord's thirst on the cross. Jesus had come to fulfill the revelation of God's thirsting love already begun as a distant echo in Adam and Abraham. Jesus brings all these threads of revelation together in himself. Those Old Testament figures prepared his coming, and in his light, we can see the fullness of their meaning and beauty. Creation itself is a spilling over of God's infinite thirst to love and to be loved, even beyond the borders of the Trinity. It is the fruit of a divine expansiveness to share this love. The creation of the angels, the bringing forth of the material universe, the creation of man and woman, our own unique creation, all are expressions of God's infinite thirst to love and to be loved. Think of the thirst that seems inborn in the created universe. Creation ceaselessly thirsts for God the Creator, without whom it cannot exist. Even inanimate creation is a symbol of this universal thirst for God. Yet, man is the greatest reflection of God's thirst, since he alone is created in God's image. If God is a thirst, then so too are we, a living thirst to love and to be loved. Then think of the fall. God is life. And when our first parents turned their thirst away from him and toward the self, they brought death upon themselves. Both God's thirst for man and man's frustrated thirst for God were immeasurably increased after the fall. God then chose Israel as a symbol and channel of his thirst for humanity. He traced out their path to restoration by giving them the great commandment to thirst for him. Love desires, thirsts for intimacy, for the opportunity to know and be known by the beloved, and to share life together. The covenant bond established between God and Israel was spoken of by God as his marriage with his people. He chose the most complete symbol of mutual thirsting love. The Song of Songs symbolically prefigures the wedding of God and humanity. The final chapters of the book of Revelation portray its fulfillment with the marriage of the Lamb. When God's thirst is united with human thirst, as it was on Calvary, miracles of grace and resurrection occur. Here we find the secret to the Christian vocation, the union of these two thirsts in our own hearts. Too often, what is missing in this desired union of thirsts is our own thirst for Jesus. If we look closely at Mother Teresa, we will find that her single most striking characteristic, beyond her charity, beyond her zeal, was her profound thirst for Jesus. This, then, is the doorway through which to walk if we wish to deepen our own experience of the thirst of Jesus for us. The same door that opened God's thirst for Mother Teresa. The renewal and the deepening of our own thirst for Him. Our thirst for God is the unseen element that completes the mystery of Jesus' cry of thirst as both God and man on Calvary. Our thirst for God is the same element that allows us to recreate the fullness of that mystery in our own lives. If we wish to experience resurrection power and life, both of these elements need to be present as they were at the crucifixion. Jesus' thirst for us and our thirst for Him. Jesus desires, thirsts for, our own thirst for Him, not as a mere bit of sentimentality, but as an all-consuming impetus of the soul, through which we open ourselves entirely to Him in trust and surrender ourselves completely to Him in love. No matter how far I may have traveled in my knowledge and experience of Jesus' thirst, the only path to deepen that encounter is for my own thirst for Him to be renewed. What is equally important, my thirst for Him, is the only way to satiate His thirst. Again, we come up against this amazing truth. Jesus thirsts for my thirst. This is that dual thirst of God for humanity and of each of us for God that Mother Teresa experienced internally and that she sought to communicate to all whom she met and touched. The purpose of these pages, despite their human poverty, is to encourage and assist you in your own encounter with Jesus' thirst, an encounter that can change your life and the lives of those through whom you touch Him every day.